Hello, Frank. How are you today?
Buongiorno, Amanda.
What's up? How's your Friday?
I'm excited it's Friday. It's fall, and many people know that I am a huge fall. I'm an OG fall lover, so I'm really excited about it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about brand and marketing strategy and really like what they should be accomplishing. I mean, I know that a lot of people talk about brand, they talk about marketing, they talk about stuff, but they don't like it needs to do something. It can't just be this like topic that you discuss out here. So I guess like let's just dive right into it. Why do you feel like this is an important thing for people to talk about?
I feel like it came up in thinking about a lot of people who are tasked with growth, general growth. That could be a CMO, it could be a performance marketer, director, it really could be anyone that's tasked with hitting a certain growth, particularly related to revenue goal. And most people will turn to branding and marketing and even sales, support for that. And I think that's important, right? It's huge, but they get really frustrated a lot of the times because it either doesn't get that result really directly. There's not a direct impact from those initiatives, or they feel overwhelmed, or especially in marketing, it can feel extremely disparate or disconnected and somewhat directionless. So those initiatives start to feel like they don't really have a lot of effectiveness, especially as it pertains to hitting that goal. Again, usually it's revenue driven. Sometimes it can be driven by other things, but yeah, that's honestly why it came up. And so when we're talking about branding and marketing strategies, it's thinking through, okay, what should those things be accomplishing? Because a lot of times it's one or the other. You'll have this either unfair expectation of it, meaning like, oh, we'll just do a branding, exercise, and all of a sudden we'll hit 50 million in revenue this quarter.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of things that have to happen in between, but then there's no excuse for the opposite, in the sense of like, a lot of creative work can be like, well, it's all very ethereal and it should work, and it does, but it does have to solve for certain things. So
I really like that. I guess before I ask more questions, why do you think that is? Why do you think that happens?
why do I think that happens? I think it's because we get in a mindset of activation, just do more faster, right? It can be really tempting to say like, okay, well, we need to hit goals. The more we do, the better it's going to be. The more we just put things out into the universe, we work on more initiatives, the more it's going to bring us success. And I think to a certain extent, you might see traction to a certain degree. You might see a little bit of effectiveness, but it's very unlikely, and it's pretty common for those things not to actually help you hit your goals, but actually feel more overwhelming and not accomplish much.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like when people have a lot to do, it can almost become paralyzing and you just don't even know what to do next. And I think when it comes to like efforts around a brand or around a company or an organization, everybody kind of knows what you should be doing. And so like you try to do all the things that you're supposed to be doing, whether or not knowing they're the right things to do. And like there's just a lot of like effort that can get put forth into trying to analyze a brand or represent it or promote it or create awareness around it or even marketing tactics. And it can just be exhausting when you try to do all the things. And a lot of times companies like feel they have to do everything perfectly, and you can't, like it's not possible. So it can be super overwhelming. But when you think about like you said, everybody tries to do more faster, and that's not necessarily the right solution. So like what do you think the solution is to trying to solve for that?
Yeah. Well, I think the key is in the term solution itself. I've talked about this a lot as we've done a lot of brand and marketing strategies for both ourselves and for clients. Don't just look at growth as doing more. Don't look at it as, hey, where we're at, we just got to start doing more things. We just got to put stuff out there. To a certain degree, that has a little truth behind it. If you're not doing anything, obviously the 0 to 1 is going to be impactful. But most of the time, there is a reason, there's a challenge, there's a problem that you have to troubleshoot. There's a reason you haven't hit a certain result. That could be logistical. It could be because you're not doing enough. But the first thing you need to do in order to have your brand and or marketing strategy be effective is troubleshoot what you're solving for, right? If your current situation is over here and what you need to hit or what you need to accomplish is over here, there's a gap between those two things. And you need to identify what you're solving for, i.e., what is that gap? What should your brand and marketing strategy solve for in order to get you there? which I think is just a little bit of a different way of looking at it versus we're here and we just need to start doing things without knowing what we're actually solving for. We just hope that if we do more, we'll achieve what we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, and this is going to be super cheesy, but even when you think about like a map to get to, point A to point B, you have to go through all the points in between,
Right.
and you can't just like, teleport yourself there.
Exactly.
So it's important to like understand the twists and turns you need to navigate in order to get to that end destination.
Beautiful analogy, because most people will look at it, especially people who have that weight and burden of growth, particularly in higher level positions, want and expect brand and marketing to look more like a highway than it does probably a bunch of different turns and streets. They're like, okay, well, if we're doing an initiative, it should bring us 20 million in sales. And as much as you would want that to be true, and maybe there should be connection between how those two things work, there's a lot of turns that you have to figure out in between, to use your analogy. So that's what your brand and marketing strategy should be doing, is figuring out and applying the right initiatives towards those turns.
Yeah. And I even like, as an agency, we use the, traction EOS model, where every quarter we have rocks or individuals or teams work on large initiatives that can push a department, service, or the organization as a whole forward.
Yeah.
And I know like in the past, if we've been like, oh, we're not going to do rocks this quarter, it feels very scattered and like we don't know what we're accomplishing and we don't really have a purpose. But when we have those rocks and we all know what we as an individual are contributing to the organization or what we as a team are bringing forward, it's really like we can focus and we feel a lot better about what we're accomplishing, but we're also like, we're working on the right things to drive the organization forward to the place that we want to be. I think that's super important. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you talked about it a little bit, just about like identifying like what to be doing and kind of how to do that. But I guess I want to dive a little bit more into like the tangible part of that. Like, how can a person actually start, or starts to do it? How can somebody actually start doing that?
Yeah, there are so many ways depending on who you are. The way I like to do it, or at least maybe one of the simplest ways to get started, is really to just identify your current situation and your vision for what you need to get done. This can be applied at any level. We use it as an exercise for if you're doing a massive brand transformation, similar things. It's just on a little bit of a higher level look. If you just need to figure out what things you need to accomplish by the end of the quarter or the end of the year, let's say, you can use the same type of idea. So make two lists, right? The first one, you can label it current situation and put between, keep it somewhat high level, between 3 and 5 bullets of, hey, here's where we're at. Here's just an objective picture of where we're at. And then put down on the right-hand side a list, its desired future state or vision. And then put 3 to 5 bullets that defines that. And quickly you'll notice that there's a gap between the two. Let's say the left-hand side, the current situation has X amount of leads or leads coming from this place, and the right-hand side says you want to work with these people. If those two things are aligned, great, you've already hit your goal, but that's probably not the case, right? If they're not, though, it shows you like, okay, there's the gap that we need to solve for, which then should inform our initiative. And that's what a brand and marketing strategy is. One thing I would note to be careful of, and we kind of hit on it earlier when you're asking about kind of what's the solution to that, is be weary of, on any side of those things, listing out really hard, concrete end goal numbers. And here's what. So for example, on the right-hand side of vision, if you're at 20 million right now in revenue and you need to get to 50 million, it's not really helpful to write that on those lists. It should be something in mind, but putting 50 million on the list is not going to really get you to figure out those turns, right? It's just going to put you in the same mindset again of, oh, we just need 50 million. Try and think a little bit more about why you haven't hit it. What is the reason? What's standing in the way? Has it been your profit margin? Has it been the clients you've been working with, the customers you've been getting? Have you been paying too much for customer acquisition there, therefore have too many losses? So I would just add that note in. Try to be very concrete and very specific, but don't put the actual the bottom line number there, because it's just not going to be helpful in informing what you have to do to achieve it. Yeah,
probably like limits the way that you're like it limits the way you look at it. It changes your paradigm.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that, I've seen you working with some of our clients recently, and I feel like people's and brands' fears come to the fore when you look at well, I know that this is where I'm at now and this is where I want to go, but I don't think I can make those changes. Or even when it comes to cost of goods or services, people are really freaked out about raising their rates.
Yeah.
And it can be really overwhelming. And like, we've been through that as an agency. It's hard to raise your rates because you're just like, are we worth it? Is this, but like being confident in who you are as a brand is really important to look at some of those shifts. And like you're talking about profit margins. Are we paying too much for customer? Are we willing to lose a little bit of revenue to increase our profit margin? Like some of those fears can kind of come into play when people are looking at like where they want to go, or brands are looking at what they want to do. And I like, it's super important to be vulnerable and honest about those things, I think.
Absolutely. I just saw something from James Clear's newsletter, wrote Atomic Habits. Many people are probably familiar with that. And one of the things that he just had on there was you don't always need to know the exact destination, but you do need to know the direction.
Yeah.
And I think that we hold to that. Our founder and leaders are great at kind of scoping out what that vision is, enough direction to make decisions. I think it's similar here. If you can decide on like, hey, here's where we have to go, here's what we have to do, at least in a somewhat concrete way, you can make the decisions around deciding what we have to do in order to get there. So yeah, I would say the same thing. It's really good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super informative and a really fun chat. Thank you for
I hope so. Yeah.
Knowledge.
Yeah, it's always great talking to you about these things. So I love it.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend, or week, which is half a day. I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, you too, Amanda. Bye.
Bye.